GM Farcaster, and you are here for the art, and we have a very special guest, Brian Morris, who is our July artist. And I'm so excited that you're here. Welcome, Brian. It's so great to meet you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I love it.
I'm so excited that you're here, and we're going to talk about your artist journey, your Web3 journey, and your Farcaster journey. So we're going to go through all of the things, but we got to start with, what we're here for, the art. So how did you first dive into art? Like, what was your background? What's your educational background? Like, where did this all come from and stem from?
I was a young boy. But no, I got fascinated by what art or what drawing was capable of. Like when I was a little kid, my dad was explaining how brakes worked on a car, and he was drawing them for me. And it was like in that moment, I was able to understand this abstract concept of physics with a few lines on a piece of paper. And I hate to say it was like a watershed moment, but like it really was. Like everything kind of maps back to I understood something through illustration.
I love that. I would not have expected that to be like the inspirational moment. And I love that that's that father-son moment becomes this jumping off point for you. And I love that.
In a big way. And that kind of became a path for me. I didn't realize it at the time, but art was always a way for me to understand things. And when I failed my way through high school, didn't really care much about art. But then when I got in college and saw that there was this design program and that you could tell stories through visualization, and I just kind of fell in love with it. And that became kind of my focus, like pouring all my energy into crafting stories with visuals.
Crafting stories of visuals. And your background in terms of educational background is graphic design, right? And going back a little ways. So this was how much was it computer graphic design? How much was it more of the hard skills? Like I remember doing like a graphics class in high school, and you were cutting wax out and screen printing like old school and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering, like, where was your starting point?
My heart was there, more on the craft side of it. But when I entered into design, my first gig was like a digital illustrator for a clip art company. And I would take something that Seppi had drawn on like Bristol board, scan it in using Photoshop 3. We had layers. It was huge. And I hated it. Like I hated the digital aspect of it because it felt kind of soulless. It wasn't very intuitive. And so my heart was always in the craft. But, as the tools got better and, the technology progressed, my interest deepened. I went kind of full digital. But in college, they didn't have, there wasn't even an HTML course when I was in school.
Yeah.
So I actually did a double curriculum most of my time in college where I took the traditional class and then worked with the instructor to develop my own curriculum that was digital. So like doing CD-ROMs and stuff when everybody else was still like working on layout. I was very curious about it early on. And that kind of led into, getting into digital consulting and experience design. And the last real job I had was executive creative director at PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I led the experience design discipline. And so, creativity and art is always in telling stories and helping people solve problems has kind of been the catalyst. It's pulled me through all of this stuff.
It's really interesting. I'm thinking about like our digital media design students. So where I teach in the School of Entrepreneurship, and we have entrepreneurship majors and digital media design. And in the past year, I've been like, hey, do you guys realize that AI is trying to put you out of business? What are you doing? Like I was talking to one of the professors, what are you doing to get them to realize what can be helpful to them, but then also realizing what they need to bring to the table to distinguish themselves from AI? And like, what are your thoughts on seeing sort of from when you were really an early adopter of digital to where we are now? And like, what are your thoughts for like a student who's just coming in right now?
I'm taking a deep breath here.
It's a lot. I know. It's a lot.
Last year I spoke at my alma mater, and I was talking to a lot of the younger design students. Some of them were seniors, And I was shocked. Like I did a few portfolio reviews and sat in on some classes and did some talks, and very few students were using AI. Very few students were even curious about it. And the jobs that they were being prepared for, I don't know that they exist today. So, in a few years, it's going to be very difficult for them. So I have big concerns about, from an education standpoint, where a lot of folks are going to be in a couple of years and what they're going to be prepared for. Yeah, I don't think I answered your question, but that's my thought.
But that's and that's where I'm at right now, because I think there's too much unknown.
Yeah.
Right now, I feel like artists that have a craft, that have a talent, they're going to stand out no matter what, and they're going to find their place, and they might have actually more value. But those who can't sort of find their way are going to get lost in the mix, sort of the, mid-tier, if you will, like that, that there probably was a ton of work for at one point because they would know Adobe, they would know this, they would know that. It's going to be, there's just going to be less need because someone else can just, run it through AI or something.
Yeah, I think we're all
challenging.
I think we're all trying to stay ahead of it. And even to back to the career stuff, I would say this, I left agency world to go into consulting because I saw that advertising as a creative practice was kind of dying, and it turned into more of a game of strategy and using sorcery to convince people to spend money on things they didn't need to. Moved into how do we make tools to help people. And then I left that because I felt like that was beginning to die too. It was becoming more of a commoditized practice and wasn't really adding value anymore. The best practices were in place and established, and we weren't going to innovate much. And so I left. Once I got into Web3, I was able to leave and just really focus on art. And back to the point you just raised, I think people that are well-versed in a bunch of different vocations around creativity can position themselves to kind of weather change pretty well. Like, I'm worried about AI for what it's going to do to the industry. I'm less so worried about what it's going to do to me. And not that I'm overconfident, just I understand that if I lean on my intuition and trust my instincts, that it served me okay and the people I work with okay. So I think we'll be all right.
I think that's it. I think the creativity can't necessarily be duplicated. And that's what's going to help people stand out, to have that unique perspective. And let's talk about your Web3 and your art journey as well. Oops, I'm going to do this instead. Yeah, there we go. Don't want to be covering this up. So jumping on to brianmorris.art to kind of look through some of your amazing work here. You have a unique style that's very identifiable. If I see something out in the feed, even if your name's not on it, I know it's you. Like, it's very, very identifiable. And I think that's an amazing characteristic for any artist. Like, if you have that thing where people can look at it and go, oh, I know that's a Brian Morris. I know that's a Gremlin. I know, there's certain people that you see it and you go, wait a minute, is that a, and I think that is something that, AI can copy paste, but it can't really it can't create it from the core. So I love how would you describe your art?
Yeah, we were just talking before it got on about using words to describe something that you can't say in words. That's kind of where I'm at. I tend to think of it as, just if I had to hang a name on it, it's like see-through surrealism.
See-through surrealism. I love that.
Yeah. I try to take a form or strong silhouette that we might know and tell its story inside of it. Sometimes I don't know what the story is. I kind of let it unfold, but other times it's pretty, I have a pretty clear understanding of what I'm trying to achieve.
I love the Pepe. I kind of paused on this one because this is another one of those moments of, I knew it as soon as I saw it. I went, oh, this must be a Stoic. This must be a Stoic collab, because I could see the Gabe Weiss in it, and like immediately. And I loved that because I could see that, when he did Stoics and he had the one-of-ones, that were different artists, it was like immediately you could see their take on it, and it really stood out, and it was so cool. So it's I loved when I saw this piece. I'm like, oh, I know what that is.
That's beautiful. That's
Amazing.
perfect.
Yeah, amazing. And but I love this the Mona Lisa one too. It's just so cool. You have some other like unique styles that you do as well. And I don't know, how do I pronounce this? Is it the ooze? Is it the O's? What is it?
Yeah, again, it's not supposed to be. There's no phonetic pronunciation, but I tend to go with O's.
O's?
Yeah.
Go with the flow. That makes sense. O's would go with the flow. But I love this style as well. It's really, really cool. I mean, these are so trippy that it's just like you can see the movement even if it's not moving, right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of vibe, which I think is amazing. And
The
just
O's
so cool.
are they're kind of my playground. So I have a basic. It's almost like a brand for me. Yeah, I'm spending so much time in advertising and whatnot. Limiting myself to blue background, googly eyes, multiple googly eyes that are conjoined, and red lips. Like what do I feel like making with those basic ingredients? And it's kind of, it just goes where it wants to go. They really do kind of go with wherever my energy is.
I think they're so fun. Like this to me is just, we talk a lot about, so I come from the nouns ecosystem. We talk a lot about wrapping everything in a box of fun, even if it's something serious. And this to me is just like a lot of fun and joy. And I think that is sometimes missing. We can take things too seriously. And I just kind of I love this vibe. It's just so much fun.
It makes me so happy to hear you say that. In a lot of ways, these are a reaction to the seriousness that I have to put into some of my work. Like the Mona Lisa, I mean, that was months of staring into glass, like looking at this thing, making it happen. And that, it weighs on you. And so doing these very fun bursts, I might sketch it in a sketchbook and then draw it digitally 6 months later. But like just in the moment, quick hit illustrations, they make me feel good. So I'm glad that it comes through.
It totally comes through. And I think that's, that to me is like the core of the artist, is that a lot of times they're making things for themselves, right? It's not necessarily for an audience, as opposed to like when you're working in corporate, when you're working in advertising, when you're working in marketing, graphic design, and you're really about, serving somebody else's purpose or serving someone else's goals, and not as much necessarily about what for you. So you're going to need, if you're doing that all the time, you need these outlets of just your own creativity, or you're going to lose it. It's kind of use it or lose it, right?
Man, I can't agree with you more. In fact, it was one of the catalysts for me leaving corporate was
really,
I put my art in a box, and that box being my available time outside of working 80 to 90 hours a week, traveling. I have 2 kids. I own multiple properties in Chicago. I have I build classic cars. And my art had this much time. And after like 20 something years of working in corporate, that wasn't enough anymore. And it was just like a full break into just, where's my energy you want to be creatively? Just go do that and be damned if it works or not, because I was helping people make their dreams come true in organizations and putting mine on the side. And I had to stop that.
So was Web3 the thing that helped you to do that, or was that journey starting before you got into Web3?
It started before. I got interested in Web3 more from its the capabilities of smart contracts. I was working with a lot of large organizations that were doing transactions the old-fashioned way, and managing businesses in kind of the same way they were in the 60s and 70s. And so I saw blockchain as I still think it's going to change the world. And I got interested in it for really as a way to help my clients. And I had heard of CryptoPunks, and I had seen a kitty. Like I knew a little bit, and I had a wallet, and I've held Bitcoin. I've had Bitcoin for quite some time. So like I've always been a believer, but it wasn't until Clubhouse, and Clubhouse was another thing where I was doing a lot of social media engagements, and so always trying new platforms, which is how I got on Farcaster. Just trying new things and new tools, and ran into some artists that were talking about NFTs and asked a few questions, and then a few months later, selling work on Foundation.
Wow.
So it was kind of a wild, started with how do we use this technology to help some enterprises do business better, to how do I sell a picture of a pink skull,
Yeah.
months.
Like that's amazing. And I want to show sort of your some of your work in the Web3 space. And this to me is some great examples here of some of the open editions that you've done, but also some one-on-ones of different PFPs in your style. And it's again, like I would know this was you, even if I didn't know it was you. And I think that's what makes it special. And I'm not a big fan of the apes, but I kind of like these versions. I just gotta say, I think they're kind of cool. But I love this, like the doodle. There's a moonbird in here. There's a couple doodles. There's a gutter cat. The coda, like they're just really cool. The Pepe, Robotos. You've got all the cool. Oh, that's a V-friend. The moonbird, I love. I love the moonbird. And again, not a big fan of the birds. A fan of the art, not a fan of the product. Different things. But I love the art.
Like, PFP. Well, you were there. We were all there.
Yeah,
this is like
we were all there.
Like a snapshot. Here's a great use case for the blockchain. Like it's a snapshot of a moment in time when enthusiasm was high in some areas, and we were all really excited about the idea of digital identity, and we still are. But yeah, we put a lot of energy into these projects, and some people wanted to put even more behind it. And I always kind of thought of those as like hot rodding up somebody's digital asset. Like they bought a nice Buick ape. It's a good ape, but they wanted like a portrait of it. They really wanted to soup it up a little bit. That's my job.
That's a great way to put it. I love that. It's the souped up version of your PFP. Have you already done any nouns art? I don't think so.
I haven't. I've done tons of nouns, not tons. I've done several nouns. They've never been used. I haven't shown them.
Okay, we have to talk after this. We might have to make that happen. Shout out to Symbiotech and Tony Hawk there. I think they'll get on this. That's I think Symbiotech was how I first found your art. He used to use one of your images as a PFP, and that's how I first remember seeing it or being introduced to your art. And I loved it. It was
whenever I'm someplace cool digitally, he's already there. He's been there.
Right. And he's always on the edge. Yeah.
Always. Sure. I had the opportunity to talk to him on a call a little while ago, and I told him, I was like, I know I'm on to some good fertile soil if you've already got some roots there. And when I joined Farcaster, like seeing his PFP and his account, I was like, this is a safe spot. Things are going to happen here.
This is a place you can come in. And speaking of, so let's dive into this a little bit. And actually I can go back to this one. So you jumped on Farcaster not that long ago, but I feel like you really dove in a big way. So probably maybe 6 months ago. Am I right in that time frame? I'm not sure. Maybe it was sooner.
My FID is like 14,000, I think.
Oh, okay. So that's not bad. So you're at least back in the fall. You must have been before the 20,000, which was like October. So, so you're fairly early then. That's great. And then I feel like, there's a lot of churn. We have a lot of artists come and go. And I feel like you really dove in. You created a channel for the ooze. And I love that you're sharing other artists like Food Masku here. And sharing like different things. Like I love that, you're doing. I love seeing your ooze on the coffee, on denim coffee. I think that's great. So, really kind of diving in and sharing and what I see you too, what I see the difference between folks who come in and look for like the immediate, like what can I get from Farcaster rather than what can I contribute. And I feel like you've really been the what can I contribute here and diving in and connecting with people. And I think, what I think about Farcaster, it's a social network. It's not social media. And if you treat it like a social network, you get a huge amount out of it. And I don't know if that's been your experience or not, but that's definitely for me.
I think you articulated the same way that I try to tell other people about it, which is it's not social media, it's a social network. And if you think about it like LinkedIn from a year and a half ago, not LinkedIn today, but like LinkedIn from a year and a half ago, if you kind of approach
or Facebook, like Facebook circa, 2006.
Right.
Yeah, like it was 2007, something like that.
Yeah. And it ebbs and flows. Some weeks where I'm like, here's a bunch of stuff I'm making. And then other weeks it's like, I'm just going to go hang out in other people's conversations and either affirm their beliefs or challenge their values. And we'll see what happens.
I am very similar in that. I try to do more. I think the reply guys have it down. Like they know what they're doing. Like they get in those replies, and I do think that's how you connect. Is like seeing what other people are interested in, finding the folks that you have similar interests or that are talking about something that's interesting, and you can learn something. So there's those two aspects of it.
Even the way that somebody's talking about something.
Yeah.
Like I've become interested in people because of the way that they articulate, less so what they're saying or what they're talking about. It's just like it's almost like how a guitarist might play an instrument. Like just the accent they have on that note just makes it special. I think the same for Farcaster.
I love that analogy, and who I immediately thought of was July. Like July to me, I don't know if you follow at July, but his way of articulating certain ideas is so different. It's unique. It's a different perspective. Like I sometimes I just don't know even where he's going and what direction he's going in. And then he'll just put this thread and then you go, oh, okay. It takes a minute. And then you can like kind of, oh, okay, that's interesting. There's a few people like that. Yeah.
A little snag that just grabs your curiosity a little harder. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't find that on Twitter. I think there may have been a time, but that time has passed.
I have this dilemma. Sometimes I'll be writing a tweet and I'll stop. I'm like, this is actually a cast. Like I'm writing a cast in Twitter right now. Why am I wasting my time?
Yeah.
Fucking doing this. Pardon my French.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah. I get it. I do the same thing. I'll be like, oh, this doesn't belong here. This is going to fall flat. There's no reason for me to post this here. No one's even going to see it.
Yeah. If you do, you delete it 10 minutes later. It's got 4 likes in 10 minutes. You're like,
what am I doing? Yeah, why am I over here? I said the other day, I still will travel back over to Twitter and check in on and see what's going on. And then every time I do, it's like I'm going back to a place where I used to live. And it's, kind of dilapidated. And it's like, oh, I still have some friends there. I still have some old friends. And you check out the old neighborhood and then you go, now I remember why I don't live here anymore. And then I go back to my home in Farcaster.
It's still the town square, but there's a lot of seediness.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in small doses now. And then I go back to my cozy little new home over in Farcaster. So I'm really glad that you're there now. So it's like the more times, great when I have these, very amazing people who kind of come over from crypto Twitter and find a home. And it's like Bread Cat is another one. And we'll talk about Oregon Trail. It's like, I'm so glad that they dove in and stuck around. Cause it's like, I knew there's certain people. I'm like, I knew you guys could contribute. I knew you guys could make this place better. I'm so happy to see it.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think folks that approach it as, like you said, more as a social network and a place to learn and to grow. It's the right people tend to.
Special. It's really special. So I want to talk about Oregon Trail. And I want to show a couple art pieces here really quick. This is a game that happens in a frame on Farcaster, on Warpcast, for those who aren't familiar. And we used it for those who are familiar with GM Farcaster and Cast Out. You saw it as one of the games that we used in Cast Out, which was our little Farcaster Survivor game we did last month. And that's when I learned that you had done the art for it. I had no idea. I just loved it. And I think I was shouting it out. And I was saying something to Bread Cat. I'm like, oh my God, you've added so much more cool GIF art here, glitch art. it looks amazing. And then he said, oh, it was all Brian Morris. I'm like, oh, I had no idea. I should have known, but I didn't know. So how did that all come about? And what else is, you mentioned maybe some new things are coming. So
yeah.
what's going on with Oregon?
Well, Breadcat and I have collaborated on stuff for years. Like he's one of the folks I met on, I think I met him on Clubhouse, and then, went through like everything from buying sandbox land together to like, being in a little trading DAO together that failed miserably.
I brought real land with him.
Oh, so you have some.
I have a piece of Flowjamistan.
Okay.
Too.
So you know how fun he is to collaborate with.
Yes.
Yeah, he makes it. I don't know. He makes it fun. He vibes so well and open to all ideas and never says no. Always says, and then we can. And so this was another. It was another one of those moments where he's like, "Hey, I reached out to this guy. He said, Board Elon wanted to build this thing, and I think we can do it. And do you want to help?" And a few days later, we had like he had a working prototype. And I love to, it's not the first project that nobody knows I really did in the space. I love working with folks to develop a brand and a look and a feel and a character and an IP and all that, creativity that goes with it. And so coming up with, a new version of the Oregon Trail, what it might look like today in our, Web3 digital art kind of, it's a little X copy, it's a little retro, it's all fun. It feels welcoming, but at the same time, it's going to hurt you a little bit. Like, so just thinking about that for a few weeks and bringing it to life was incredible. And I'm excited. Like, Board Elon was really excited about where it landed and wants to see some more things happen. So I can't give away any details, but.
All right. I'm excited to see where it's going. I love it. And I loved the new iteration of it a little bit more. The first iteration, it felt like it was a little too much luck and not enough skill. And then this iteration felt like, okay, I have more choices now within the game. And for those who aren't familiar, it's like Oregon Trail, but it's in a frame. You're making choices. Your choices determine whether or not you survive and all of that. And it's really fun. I really enjoy it. So, and I love the art that, pops up at you, just really grabs you and kind of adds to the whole experience. It's incredible.
Well, and hats off to Breadcat. That they are a genius in many regards. And so, if we come up with an idea, he's already built it and thought through the use cases, and it's pretty incredible.
And he's so prolific too. He's always got something new like popping out. I think he's made at least three games already in frames, at least that I know of, and plus a whole bunch of other things that are that aren't games. Like he did an incredible frame for donations to Wave Warriors, and a whole, there's just always something he's working on. It's crazy. Amazing. And I love fiches too. I have a bunch of fiches as well.
I was wearing a fiches t-shirt before this. I did the fiches logo. Like, that's another example. I did the fiches logo.
That makes so much sense. Now that you say it, I see it. Like, I see your style, but I would not have known that off the top of my head. But it makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Breadcat's one of those folks. If we can't shout his praise high enough, if you're able to get within his vibratory circle, you will hum in a new way. So do so.
Yeah, can't recommend him enough. Amazing. And so, moving to where we are now, we're here for the art. GM Farcaster. It's something we started a few months back to highlight artists within the Farcaster ecosystem. We kind of started with some OGs, and now we're moving into some of the newer folks who've come on and really contributed a lot to the platform. And the only prompt we give any of the artists is something that speaks Farcaster, something that speaks GM, or both, or whatever is whatever vibes for you when I say those words. And that's it. And we've just left it completely open, and it's been all over the place, and I've loved it because I love seeing the artist's take on something very broad and just see where you go with it. And I'm So can you give us any, like, we don't have a final version yet. When this drops, we'll be dropping the art piece as well. And that will be available. We'll be airdropping it to our hyper sub, but it will be available to mint for anyone. All creator rewards are going back to Brian, and we're dropping on Zora. So what can you tell us a little teaser of what you have in store?
Yeah. So for me, Farcaster and GM, so those two things together, especially, it's really about being genuine and coming, from within. And so the quality of the inner GM that you have is literally broadcast out and creates the environment in which you find yourself in. And so that's what the piece is about, is
I love it.
seeing the GM inside and the energy that creates around.
I love it. I love the energy of the GM. One of my favorite things, and I will drop a link to this. I didn't have it ready to go up, but I'll drop the link in this in the show notes for this. Is Maya Drayson from Timepieces, who you may know as well. She has this whole thing about what GM means to her and like what it is, and that it's bigger than just saying good morning. It's about a whole vibe and a whole like authenticity to your world. And so that's what just came to mind when you said that, is that inner GM of, bringing positivity to the space rather than, just worrying about my bags, just worrying about number went down again or whatever it is, like finding like the bigger moments, the bigger, whether it's the tech that, I think all of us believe is, the future and the present for us, or it's the art and being able to have that be more accessible to more people who now are collectors of art who couldn't have been in a traditional world, in traditional art world. And so I think there's so many different layers to this. And that to me is way more important than, how much my DGen is worth today. So, yeah.
Another deep breath. I could not agree more. Like last year, there seemed to be a slowdown with artists saying GM on X, and it kind of hurt my head a little bit, because to me the GM was always it was a sign of not just showing up, but like saying we're all kind of here together, and
Yeah. It was like a, you're working from home, especially if you think about during COVID times. Yeah. It was the way to like, kind of the office, if you will. Everyone's, you're all working remotely, you're all in different places, but it was kind of like, walking into the office with your coffee cup and like, hey, good morning, GM, everybody. Let's get the day started.
Well, and not to blow smoke up your butt, but like in a lot of ways, I think GM Farcaster is like that too. A few days a week, when I'm making breakfast, I may not always be on Lonely, so I can chat, but like I'm listening while I'm making breakfast, and it's kind of like I was listening to the partners at PwC with some of the morning stand-ups. It's like, okay, here's what's going on. Here's what I got to pay attention to. So yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate you keeping the office informed with what's happening.
Trying to keep the office informed. We were compared at one point to like the morning announcements at your high school. And I was like, I like that vibe. I actually like that vibe.
I like that a lot.
Because we're this small little community, and it's like, here's the, morning announcents for you before you start your day, before you dive in. We've got a few
steak
things.
Today, steak tomorrow. Don't forget.
Tomorrow, don't do it. You're gonna lose your allotment. Like all those little things that we get to share with people, and just to be able to talk about the things that are interesting to us. And we love Farcaster. We love what people are doing. We love highlighting artists. We love highlighting builders. People are launching something new constantly. Like there's something new every day. We can't even keep up with it anymore. It's amazing.
I'm sure many of your listeners are curious, like, how do you guys keep up with?
It's not easy. It used to be really easy because there were literally, like, if you go back to October when they did the OG NFT, 938 people got it. That's how many people were active on a daily basis for the 2 weeks prior. So it was easy. right? You could literally see every cast. You know, you can end the, you know, at the end of the internet, you know, that kind of thing. And now it's a little harder, but we have our methods. We have certain, you know, we have certain things. We'll always check what did Dan cast, what did V cast, what did, you know, that the team cast, to make sure we don't miss anything that's really important. And then it's like things that come through our feed, you know, trending, what's trending, what are people talking about, and then what do we find interesting and feel like we can add to the conversation. If it's something that's been thoroughly covered by someone else, we may not jump into that because, you know, we'll add our own stuff. We'll find something else, but, and also trying to highlight things that maybe people missed, you know, that we thought were interesting and things like that. But that's sort of our method. And we just spend way too much time on Farcaster is the problem. So this is how we justify all that time we spent on Farcaster. It's for our job now.
You know, I've got a tan because you guys know.
You guys can go outside and play in the grass. We got you.
That's where we all are apparently right now.
I know. It's been a little quiet. It's been a little quieter. It's kind of been nice actually. But I love that you're contributing to our ecosystem. It is so special to have an incredible artist of your caliber, like doing things like Oregon Trail or dropping your art in your channel. And, you know, for those who haven't jumped in there, again, like amazing. Your link tree is right on your profile. So if you want to check out any of Brian's art, brianmorris.art, but also you can go to this link tree and find everything, or go to the O's channel, which is pretty amazing. So go check it out. And I thank you so much for doing this. Like, it's so special to have you a part of our Here for the Art. It really means a lot. And I'm excited.
Thank you for letting me be part of it. Like I said, I listen all the time, and I was like, I get to contribute to this in some way, and that makes me feel really special. So thank you.
I absolutely love it. So grateful. And with that, we're going to wrap, and we will be dropping this with the art piece very soon. Going to do a quick little closing credits, and stick around. Quick little after show chat. And thanks so much for being here. And with that, bye-bye, everybody.